Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Pilgrims, here we are once again. It is our 21st episode. Andy Walker, 21 today. Happy birthday to us in a kind of a weird way because we haven't even been going for 12 months yet. But 21st episode. How do you feel?
We are officially adulting, I think, as of today, which is really exciting. I mean, 21. Very special birthday / anniversary.
It is. It is interesting that you refer to us as adults. I feel like that's possibly a theme that may flow through and in the not too distant future in our discussion.
What, in a positive way, or does someone think we're clutching at straws?
Not sure how I feel about it just yet, but I think
Right.
we'll get to that. I think we'll get to that in due course. But
looking forward to that conversation.
Oh, as you always do. And as you know, I don't tell you about what's coming before we turn the microphones on to start recording anyway. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is just a little bit of fun for me to watch Andy Walker's reaction as I drop the bombshells in his direction. But 21st episode, there's a lot on the agenda to talk about tonight, Andy Walker. We've got as we'll get to in just a moment, the regulation voices of our Pilgrims to share. There's been a bit of feedback this week. I think as well, we're going to potentially get into a bit of an update from your good self for a recent round.
Yes, I did have a comp round today at my home club, which, little bit come out of that. So, I, after last week of having to put golf on the bottom rung, which I wasn't overly happy with. It was a little bit disappointing not to be able to play in a comp round last week, but yes, actually jumped in and played in the comp today. And there's a few updates there, which we'll get to.
There's a bit to unpack.
There is.
Very good. And I also, later in the episode, have a few questions for you about the professional game. Which we'll get to. So, couple of observations. I've been watching a little bit of golf lately and seen a few things that made me think, that's interesting. Wonder what Andy Walker thinks about that. I mean, I could just as easily have sent you a message or given you a call and asked you, but I thought I'd wait until we were recording an episode to ask that question. So,
why not? Why not?
Why not? Why not? Why not? But let's get stuck into our first segment. First segment of the show, The Voice of the Pilgrims, one that we all love. I might kick off with a fairly simple one, and then I think, Andy Walker, you might also have a few little voices to share.
Yes.
But this one's an interesting one. I think good place to start. He says, "Can't believe," capital letters, "can't believe."
Is that's shouting, isn't it? Like
it is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I should say, actually, this is from Paul from Sydney that sends us this. We thought we might identify the Pilgrims just a little bit, not in a way that anyone knows who they are, just first name only. But Paul from Sydney says, "I can't believe that Andy quotes Anthony Robbins in one breath and then Eminem in the next." Now, I think we picked this up during the episode itself. But he goes on to say, plus, pulling the anniversary card and the software compliance as an alibi, he needs an intervention. Yeah, Paul from Sydney. Thanks for noticing that, Paul. Andy Walker, any comments?
What sort of intervention is he? Did he specify, or is it just a general intervention?
Just an intervention in general. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we're in regards to the quotes. I mean, we do cover a lot of bases here on the Missing Links Golf Show. So I think getting quotes and I mean, he missed Michelle Obama. I mean, if you can't quote Anthony Robbins, Eminem, and Michelle Obama in the one podcast, I mean, what sort of podcast is it?
I don't even have an answer to that question. I really don't.
I think in this day and age, you've just got to take a broad range of views and just run with it. Run with what works.
Yeah, I mean that's true. There also no mention of your earlier quoting of Forrest Gump, which that was one of my favourites that you went
Mm.
with Forrest Gump. Who else have you quoted over the course of these episodes? There's been a few.
Yeah, there's been a couple.
Been some,
I'd
been
have to
some.
go back and have a look and have a listen to previous episodes. It's they all seem to sort of mingle into one another over
That's
the
true.
last 21 episodes.
21 episodes, it's a lot. I mean, given that our backgrounds haven't really changed either, it always there's a certain amount of deja vu going on when I'm sitting here looking at the screen,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be fair. Um, but anyway, that's a good one. So apparently we'll need to keep an eye out for an appropriate intervention at some point.
Okay. I'd be interested to know more about what sort of intervention he was talking about, Paul. So if you've got any further feedback, I'd love to hear it.
He probably does. Um, he probably does, and I've got no doubt that we'll hear all about it. Another one. This is one of my favourites, actually. I've got to say, and shout out to Mikey from Shropshire for
Ah,
this.
Mikey.
Yeah,
Nice.
for this. I think it's Mikey, not Mickey. I think it's Mikey. Could be Mickey. Apologies, Mikey, if it's Mickey, and apologies,
Well,
Mickey, if it's Mikey.
well, if it's Mickey would be Micky, whereas Mikey would be Mikey.
Well, this is
Is
M
it?
I K E Y, no C. So I think
Yeah,
Mikey,
it's Mikey. Definitely Mikey. Yeah,
Mikey. Yeah. Um, could be short for Michael. Don't know.
could
Don't
be.
know. Let us know, Mikey. Drop us a line.
Hmm.
Is it short for Michael or is it in fact Mickey? Anyway, he says, and it's a question. Okay. Question followed by a statement. He says, when will we see Andy's front foot instructional video? Give the pilgrims what they want.
Mm. Yeah, look, and that's a fair point. I did mention last week that that was going to happen.
Yep.
However, obviously with anniversaries and weekends away and all the
Mm.
rest, it's yeah,
Pulling the anniversary card again.
yeah, yeah. Definitely pulled the anniversary card, and
Do we need an
yeah,
intervention, Andy Walker?
I think maybe we need an intervention. I'm not quite sure if that's got anything to do with anniversary, but hey,
Mm.
let's
Mm.
go.
Okay. So I guess you're on notice. Get that instructional video done.
Okay.
Give the pilgrims what they want. Couldn't have said it better myself. I do have one more, but did you have one that you wanted to share, Andy Walker? Do you
Well,
have
yeah, I
a
did get a
voice of the
little bit
pilgrims?
of yeah, I did get some a notice and a comment from one of the pilgrims. And look, I mean, we want to keep people anonymous, so let's just call this pilgrim Ted from Mollymook.
Ted, friend
Yeah,
of the show.
friend of the show. He was talking about the four-step strategy from last week.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
you
Okay.
remember, just a recap,
Yep.
the fourth step strategy from last week was one, identify the goal, two, make a
Yep.
plan,
Yep.
three is around accountability and having an accountability partner, and
Yep.
four was focusing on the journey and experiences along the way, not just on the outcome. And about halfway through the episode,
We added a fifth.
we added a fifth, which is flexibility, and this is around where this comment came from
Mm.
Ted, and the comment is, and I'll quote, is that first, if flexibility is step five, it weakens the goals as it allows a cop out.
Oh, wow. He
Yeah,
hasn't missed with that one.
yeah, and I go on. Any known external influences should be included in the original goal setting process on how goals are to be achieved. Obviously, unforeseeable influences are dealt with as encountered.
Yeah. That's a
So,
very
and
interesting point.
I understand the
Mm.
perspective because yes, I think that I think flexibility is good. Of course, the old saying is, keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So there needs to be a certain amount of flexibility if things aren't working. But yeah, I don't disagree going through that and whether it's a SWOT analysis or something similar in order to identify those weaknesses and threats is probably a good thing, whether it be in step one or step two. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a big point. I I don't disagree with with the gist of Ted's feedback. Okay. Um, and I think what he's driving at is around really holding yourself accountable and having discipline
Yeah,
and sticking to a plan.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's my read.
Yeah, and it's not allowing the term flexibility and being flexible to let yourself off the hook.
Yes. And to that extent, I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
However, there is a however on this.
Hmm.
Where I think you potentially run up into or run up against problems with this approach, with this, it's a very uh, hardcore approach. Like you're holding yourself very firmly
Hmm.
to the rules.
Yep.
Where I think this potentially lends itself to shortfalls is when you have a wobble, um, and you aren't able to live up to the plan, follow the plan, stick to the plan, whatever the case may be. And it's not necessarily because of outside influences, right? Like it might just be because you're having a bad week and you go, no, I don't feel like getting up at 6:30 or 6 o'clock, or I don't feel like doing that workout after work or whatever. If you are so rigid in the outlook, then that runs the risk of when you have the wobble and you have the bad week of going, well, I can't do it. And I'll throw the towel in and I'll give up altogether. And that's where I think the flexibility point comes in, is not about giving yourself the soft option and giving yourself the way out. It's actually building, and maybe our wording is wrong,
So is
but
it, is it more
it's building resilience and not letting a little hiccup actually undo the whole plan.
so is it more and I come back to our golf conversations and what we're trying to what our mental has been on the golf course? Is it more around acceptance rather than flexibility? Is it acceptance that sometimes we're going to hit a bad shot, or sometimes
Yeah.
we're not going to uh, have a great week and we're going to miss our goals in a particular week, and accepting that that's just part of being human and getting
Yes.
back on track.
Yes. That's absolutely part of it, without a doubt. And I think acceptance, really good word. Um, Resilience is another good word that we use a lot, which,
Yep.
and I think it's a combination of those things, because what you're talking about, the example that you're giving, which I think is relevant, is by this sort of approach of going, no, we must stick to the plan. We've got to hold. We, can't allow ourselves the weak decision. We've got to do all things right that we put in the plan. Otherwise, we didn't make a good enough plan in the first place, or we weren't good enough to hold ourselves to the plan, is kind of the feeling that I get from it. It's a little bit like stepping onto the first tee going, I must hit my shots in a certain way. I must stick to my course management strategy. I must do all these sorts of things. And then 3 holes in, you've hit a couple of really bad shots and made a couple of double bogeys. At that point, what do you do? Do you throw the towel in for the round, or do you actually recalibrate, pull yourself together, and continue on and finish the best you can? And I guess that's the point that we're trying to make. So flexibility in the way that it was intended wasn't about just allowing yourself to go and do whatever you want and readjust the plan whenever you feel like it, but it was about saying, if you miss certain bits, don't throw everything away because you've had a bad day, bad week, or whatever.
Yeah.
Stick with it.
And it's a fine line, I think, between the two, isn't it? There's one thing
Yeah.
to hold yourself accountable and accepting that you're going to have a bad week or you're going to hit a couple of bad shots, and be and you mentioned about waking up at say 6:30 or 6 o'clock and just going, oh, you know what, I couldn't be bothered getting out of bed today because I just would prefer to sleep in. Of course, the other side of that coin, and I have heard this, and it does certainly work for me, is that yeah, there's times when I don't want to be getting up at, I normally set my alarm for 6:15 to get up and do whether it be the resistance training or cross training. But actually then by me having the discipline of getting up and getting out there, I'm a couple of minutes in and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go. I'm keen, and I've got the motivation back, and the act of doing and taking action does bring back that motivation, even though when I'm lying in bed, I'm going, I don't want to get up. It's early. I'd prefer to sleep in.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I think that's absolutely spot on. And I guess what we're talking about though is that you bring this in not in the moment before where you're actually making that tough decision, but maybe this is something that you're bringing in the moments after when you're potentially judging yourself,
Mm.
um, and it's cutting yourself some slack and remembering as well, like for a lot of these sorts of things that we're talking about, this is meant to be fun. It's not meant to be punishing.
Yeah.
Um, and yes, there needs to be an element of discipline involved, and yes, there needs to be an element of consistency involved and sticking to the plan and all those sorts of things. But I don't know that it needs to be, um, when for circumstances, whatever they may be, physical health, mental health, other things that creep in. I don't think you should beat yourself up too much if you weren't able to stick to it, but pick yourself up and go again and try and do better next time. I guess
Yeah.
that's the message.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and I agree with that. But as I said, I think it's a fine line between the two,
Mm,
and maybe a bit more of a definition rather than just the broad flexibility term might be in order.
mm, mm.
Mm. So that's part one of the comment of the Ted's voice of the pilgrim. So
Wow.
the
It's
so
just
the set
hard hitting stuff, Ted.
so the second part of it, because he does actually suggest a step five rather than flexibility,
Ooh.
and this is one thing that I think we missed talking about, and that is determining when the goal or destination has been achieved,
Oh,
and resetting the goal, like another stretch goal, because it's one thing to have a goal, and to make a plan, but like what's the timeline? What like
depends on the
we're
goal, doesn't it?
yeah, we're talking about obviously, um by the time we get to 55, our game's be in good enough shape to be able to play on the Australia-wide seniors tour. So that's obviously a natural timeline for us
I
in
feel like our goal's
what we're
growing.
doing. It
I,
is
I just
it's
started out wanting to play the New South Wales Senior Amateur Tournament. Now
yeah.
we're going on tour all over
Oh,
Australia.
oh look,
That's fine. That's okay.
when we get
Champions Tour.
through when we get through our 324 step strategy of I think that's
Uh,
probably where it's going to go.
yeah.
So yeah, so having a determining like
Yeah.
what that looks like, and maybe
So
having a
so
time
is
frame
it
around it.
is this like a measurement review process
Yeah,
that we're talking about here? Is that
yeah.
what Ted's suggesting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at and a lot of coaches, they talk about the having SMART goals and having a smart
Sure.
approach, and the last part of that, the T, is time
Time
based.
bound. Yeah.
So I think that's what Ted's talking about, is having a time frame around the
Yeah.
goals that we're
Yeah. Yeah.
setting.
Look, to be fair, when I was listening back to the episode, the thought did strike me that we didn't actually talk about the element of the specifics of goal setting, and smart goals would have been something that I think we both would have talked about. So I don't disagree at all with that feedback. I think that's all quite relevant. I think that there's something though that's going on in my mind that's rattling around like a little pea in a barrel. And that's how my brain works, Andy Gordon.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and and it's around the the gist of what we were trying to do is not specifically just around goal setting and achievement of goals, but it's about finding ways to allow yourself to pursue the dreams that you hold as well as just fulfilling the obligations.
Yep.
So it's about trying to come up with a strategy to enable you to do that. And with that in mind, you know, the goal element of it may not always be something that fits into that SMART framework, might not be as, and doesn't have to be, I think, as specific, measurable, etc. Because it might be around just, I want to, I want to spend a bit more time on a particular hobby, and that, in our case is golf, but that, it could be anything. It could be, I don't know, flying model airplanes, take your pick. So it might not have to fit that bill. It depends how serious you want to get into it and how much you want to actually achieve as the end result versus just getting, doing something for yourself.
So it's an ongoing process, is what you're saying. Like
I
it's
think it depends on the situation. To be honest, I think in our situation, probably we could take Ted's advice, to be perfectly honest, because we are trying to do something which is a little bit more specific and a little bit, and a little bit more detailed. And I don't think we've really done that so far. I think we've kind of thrown out this broader, we want to be, cruising around with KJ Choi on the Champions Tour, but we haven't necessarily gone into the detail of, of when and what measurements are we going to say that we're actually achieving what we're setting out to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have sort of identified it to a certain extent. I mean, we've talked about getting our strokes gained down to effectively a scratch marker, and that's where we want to be at age 55 when we're joining the seniors tour. So that's pretty much so there is a benchmark there, and there's a time element to it, but it's not overly specific. I mean, we've got a calendar that we started filling out, which I haven't looked at for probably 3 months.
I have. In fairness, I've been trying.
Right.
I've been trying to stick to a lot of it. I haven't been able to for a lot of it as well, which is, to feedback part one. But I've cut myself some slack, Andy Walker, and I've been flexible. And so I'm still going.
Excellent.
I haven't given up.
Excellent.
I haven't thrown the towel in.
Yeah. You've accepted your pitfalls and just continued on with the process.
No, you know what I've accepted actually. What I have accepted is how unrealistic a lot of that plan was.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was
But
basically.
but do we want to be realistic though?
Oh, and here we go again. This is another one. Yeah, no, we don't. We actually don't. We really don't. Because we want to push it. We want to see what we can do. But I loaded up every morning and every evening with multiple activities. It's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that was, I don't think that was good planning. I think that was, probably getting a bit too ambitious with what I was actually going to be able to stick to.
Yeah.
But I have stuck to a fair bit of it, like in honesty, like doing a lot of the simple things and a lot of the practice sessions and short game practice sessions and high performance center practice sessions. Absolutely, I've been sticking to.
Yeah, and as we've talked about before, the convenience of having the high performance center next door in the garage, and that goes with me around having my fitness equipment. I've got some dumbbells and the cross trainer. Being able just to get up and go to the garage rather than having to jump in the car and go to the gym or go to the practice range or whatever. It just makes it so much easier to just go, yeah, you know what, I'm just gonna sneak out there for 10 minutes and away you go, and you've got it done.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's absolutely true. So actually, oh no, it's just out of reach. I was going to say this. My dumbbell's just over there. I was going to do a little bit whilst we talk. But I'd have to disconnect, and that's not ideal for the purposes of the podcast. So, no, interesting, Ted. Thank you for that feedback. We like being challenged here at the Missing Links Golf Show. We like our thought processes being certainly challenged, because otherwise you can end up in an echo chamber, and that's not much use to anyone. Good one. Anything else from Ted? Andy Walker?
That's it. There was 2 parts to it. That was it.
It's pretty good. Whilst we're on the topic of rather big concepts in the voice of the Pilgrims, I have one more. Leroy from Las Vegas. Sorry, we shouldn't laugh. That's clearly the kind of name you're going to have if you're living in Vegas,
Yeah.
isn't it? Like
Yeah.
Leroy, welcome to the Missing Links Golf Show. It's great to have you on board. We love your work.
Mm.
I have noticed that it's either you been downloading quite a bit lately, or you and a few of your mates. So whatever's going on there in Vegas, keep it up because we're loving our Vegas listeners. Anyway, Leroy says, loving the show, boys, but the thought dawned on me that this just sounds like a very public midlife crisis.
Absolutely, Lynch. Look, I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, two middle-aged blokes
Wow.
what wanting to achieve sporting glory in their middle age. I mean, if that doesn't scream midlife crisis, what does? I mean, a red Lamborghini or and
Well,
a
it's funny you say that because I when I read this piece of feedback, I went through a few emotional processes.
yep.
The first one, like yours, was a hell of a lot of laughter. Thought it was gold. The second one was denial, and a
Really?
little, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I went, for God's sake, Leroy,
Did
not
you
a
get angry?
chance. Little bit,
Yeah, okay.
little bit, yeah,
Is,
little
is that right riling against authority, that whole
bit. I'm not an angry guy. You know this. Um, Sometimes I just get a little bit cranky. Anyway, so but I thought I actually need to check this out. Like maybe
yeah.
Leroy has a point. So like any major life question, I did some Googling. And this is what I came up with.
Yep.
I'm going to read a couple of things from a great article on helpguide.org,
Okay.
which here at the Missing Links Golf Show, we definitely don't promote any health related websites or products or anything like that. And I'm not quoting this one because of any real belief in the veracity of their information. It's just simply because it was the top result on the Google search. So anyway,
Well, they do say that most people don't make it past the first page. So quite obviously, you didn't make it past the first result.
I didn't have a lot of time on my hands any Walker. It was a busy day.
Fair enough.
Nevertheless, I think it's a good article. It starts with what is a midlife crisis, and I think that's a good
Okay.
question.
Yeah, yeah.
So it says midlife takes place approximately between the ages of 40 and 60. Take any years, I'm pretty sure that around about 50 is smack bang in the middle of 40 and 60. Um, it says that one common belief around this stage of life is that you should expect to face inner turmoil about your identity, life choices, and mortality. In other words, a midlife crisis. I'm glad that it uses, in other words, a midlife crisis in its definition of what is a midlife crisis. This is some quality journalism. Um, anyway, it goes on to talk about a few things. It says the idea of a midlife crisis being a biological certainty spread. Nowadays, it's commonly associated with stereotypes of middle aged men buying fancy cars or ending marriages to regain a sense of youth. Now, this I would like to call out. There is absolutely no danger whatsoever of marriages being ended.
No,
That is not going to happen. Certainly not my choice anyway. Um, and then
I don't think a red sports car is on the high on the list of priorities for, well, really either of us, given we both drive four-wheel drives.
yes, yes, that is 100% right. I don't think a red sports car is necessarily going to suit where I live either.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
whole,
And certainly activities with kids and camping and
yeah,
going away and all that
yeah,
sort of stuff. Yeah, doesn't quite
yeah.
cut it.
This I think is interesting. It goes on to say you may start to regret your career path. Mhm. And feel trapped by your financial decisions. I won't lie, there's times when the mortgage stress is real. Um, worry about a decline in your physical abilities.
Hmm,
Feels like a central theme of the show.
maybe.
Or how about this, Andy Walker? Try this on for size. Or fret about the goals you've missed out on.
Hmm, maybe.
I think I'm going to stop there because I kind of feel like Leroy's got a point.
Yeah. Well, if you exclude the, separation, divorce, and
And
the
the sports cars.
sports car,
So in other words, if you take away the classic kind of stereotype of midlife crisis and look at it
yeah,
for what its
yeah,
definition really is,
the rest of it
pretty
seems
bang on.
like a central theme of the show, to be honest with you.
Um, yeah. So
Ooh.
welcome to the Missing Links Midlife Crisis Golf Show.
Good one.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know what to do with that. I mean,
Acceptance, I think.
yeah, I mean, we could seek help. Perhaps we need an intervention, Andy Walker.
Possibly, possibly. Yeah, maybe Paul's onto something there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so anyway, I feel that's a new record. The Voice of the Pilgrims has gone for 30 minutes.
Wow.
But I do believe that that was the conversation we needed to have, and I feel like we've been genuinely schooled by the Pilgrims tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. There's a number of very good points raised from the Pilgrims and gives a lot of food for thought.
Yeah, it does. Um, we need some thinking music, Andy Walker, on the show. Might edit
Right.
that in later.
Mm.
Excellent. So anyway, that I think that wraps up that segment, and I'd like to now probably move on to the second segment for the show, which I affectionately call Andy Walker's round today.
Nice segue. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and get your views on what took place out there on the fairways and the greens. Andy
Okay,
Walker.
so yeah, look, it wasn't and I mean to play in the comp once a month, usually it's a Stableford round. However, this week was not necessarily the ideal event to come back after a month. It was
It was a
the
stroke round, wasn't it?
was a stroke round midweek medal. So yeah,
But on the ninth, on in the middle of the month,
well, middle of the month, middle of the week,
makes
that's why it's called a midweek medal.
makes perfect sense to me. Did you tee
In,
off
in
at midday by any chance?
No, no, no. I teed off at
Shame.
7:56. I've got to tee off before 8 o'clock so I can get half a day's work in.
Mm.
But it's not the first club that I've been a member at that do have a midweek
Midweek
mid.
medal.
Yeah, yeah. There's a
Bizarre.
couple of them up here on the Central Coast that do have that.
Okay.
So yeah, midweek medal, stroke round. Not ideal when you're only playing in a comp once a month. But look, I had 81 off the stick, so playing off
Not bad.
five, so 76 net. Um, Actually was reasonably happy with the way I struck the ball. I hit a couple of fairly poor tee shots, which led to, well, I had three double bogeys in
Oh, it's
that
disappointing.
in that nine over. So I effectively I had three double bogeys, three bogeys, and 12 pars. So I didn't have a
Mm.
birdie as well, but the three double bogeys I was pretty disappointed with those, but that was basically a big block right with my tee shots that led to the three double bogeys. So I actually didn't hit a snap hook, which is
It's
very
interesting.
different. Yeah, very different for where my golf game has come from. So in talking about having my coaching session, well, now a couple of weeks ago, and what I've been working on with completing a full shoulder turn and also then working on that early extension or getting rid of the early extension. So the weight
Mm.
on the downswing, the weight is moving forward into my front foot, which then allows me to clear my hips. That
Which
seems to be,
we would all be able to visualize this move so much more easily had you have recorded the video.
well,
Anyway, continue.
I also did mention the chasing scratch guys, and the
Not as much fun.
no, it's not. It's not.
Not
But
as much fun.
if you do want to
Good video though. Good video.
understand what it's about, the life changer of Mike's left foot, that's definitely a great YouTube video to watch.
I think from memory, we actually put that on our Facebook
Oh,
page
did we?
a little while ago. Like,
Because we have talked about it before. I know when you were
I
working
think
on it.
it's there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's there.
Yep. Yep. So look, those things I feel as though I feel a lot of progress, and when I put a good swing together on with a shot, it actually, flight, you know, uh, it felt really, really good, and I was really happy with how I struck it. It's just, getting the reps and getting the time, I think, to be able to groove those swing changes and get
Mm,
that get those feels as part of my natural swing. Rather, it still feels pretty unnatural at the moment.
mhm.
However, yeah, I in saying that, I think for a stroke round and where I am in the pilgrimage, I'm pretty happy with how I played. So, officially I only hit 6 greens in regulation. However, another 5 were quite literally on the fringe of the green, and I putted. So, close enough to 11 greens in reg.
Pretty
Uh,
good.
27 putts. That was with the 6 greens in reg. So you add 5 onto that and about 32 putts, depending on sort of which way you want to look at it. So not unhappy. I felt as though 81 was the worst I could have had,
Mm, mm.
which I think if we go back a month, and I think I shot 78 in my comp round in Feb, and I felt as though that was probably the best I could have had with the way
Yeah.
I hit the ball. Whereas I felt as though 81 was the worst I could have had, and I feel a lot more progress and a lot better about where my game's at and where it's heading. And I certainly feel as though these couple of swing thoughts and swing changes that I'm making and that I'm working on are going to be a really positive thing over the coming months.
Have you got it solved? You think, Andy Walker?
Oh, look, I don't think you'll ever have it solved,
You've found the
uh,
answers?
but no, definitely not. I don't
No.
think there's any answers when it comes to this game, and I feel as though that progress is being made.
That's good.
Yeah.
That
And
is that
and
is good.
and and big progress. And yeah, I feel as though I can sort of see the end result and where I want to go. Whereas sort of before, I sort of had some idea, but not really that sure. Sort of searching for answers. I think we sort of covered, YouTube videos and reading
Yes.
and bringing a whole heap of sort of concepts that I didn't know were necessarily going to be complementary to where my coach was trying to take my swing, and that's just because the last time I saw Joe was November, and then it was at a 4 month gap
Mm.
between coaching sessions, which again isn't ideal. I'm going to try and get down to see her again. Probably won't be this month, but maybe sometime in April, I'll try and get down there and see her again, just to see where I'm at, and maybe add a couple more steps to that process.
I think it's fair to say that over the last month or so, you seem to have been on this, and there's no point in me doing a finger graph
No,
on a audio
on a pop.
podcast, but you've been very much on the up and down merry-go-round. Granted, merry-go-rounds don't go up and down, but you've been on this up and
Roller coaster, I think.
roller coasters probably go up and down a little bit more than merry-go-rounds,
Yeah,
but you've been up and down. I think you even described yourself as an elastic band
correct.
when you were talking that you were going to snap back to reality. Uh,
Yes.
thanks, Eminem. And I feel like this is continuing. That it's one week you're on top of the world, the next week you're in the doldrums.
I think I lost you then for 2 seconds.
I lost myself. Don't worry. Um, so
But but yeah, certainly from my perspective, it has been a roller coaster, and I do feel like I'm an elastic band, and But I think that's just golf, isn't it? Like that's life, that's golf, that's the pilgrimage that we're on.
Oh, yeah, there's truth in that. There's definitely truth in that. But I guess the question is, what are you going to be like next week? You know, will
Oh,
we
look,
hold?
I'm going to be on the other side next week.
I mean, I'd be happy enough next week to see you still feeling really good about it, and then maybe crash the following week.
Just in time for the Macquarie Cup.
Yeah, that could work.
Come on, come
That
on.
could work.
Yeah, look, I'm hoping. Look, I'm hoping to maybe have the wet sail, just sort of have me sailing in the right direction for a little bit longer than just a week or two. So I feel as though I've turned a bit of a corner, and yeah, I've got some definite sort of keys that
Yeah.
are there for me to work on.
I recall a conversation that we had with Josh Nichols about this
Yeah.
confidence point. I know he talks about this a little bit in his own podcast, The Mental Golf Show. If anyone's interested in checking it out, it's an excellent podcast. Talks about fragile confidence versus the opposite of fragile. So, strong confidence, reliable confidence, I suppose, and fragile confidence based on outcomes
Yep.
versus, and I am doing him a disservice with my explanation, but basically, what I'm driving at is I feel like when you come from a good round or a round where you're happy with your ball striking, for example, no duck hooks, then the confidence is high because it's based on the outcome of the shots. And what happened when you have the bad round, the confidence dips and you're doubting the process. What I'm driving at is, can you find a way to maintain the confidence levels on the process and what you're working towards, even on the bad days?
Yeah, look, and it's a good point because interestingly, I did go out this morning and I was thinking about it on the way to the course and my 3 minute drive to my
Mm.
local club. So I had a really deep.
You can think about a lot in 3 minutes. You can think about a lot at the top of the backswing. We've
Exactly,
determined. So you don't have a lot of
exactly.
time for a lot of thoughts.
So I basically went out there today and I said, look, I'm just going to accept whatever happens. I'm not going to have an expectation around score today. Obviously, I'm working a lot on my swing and on my game, and I just went out and went, you know what, whatever happens is going to happen.
Mm.
So that was it. So I didn't, yeah, I didn't get frustrated at all. I didn't, yeah, even when I had the three double bogeys, I just sort of went, well, that's where I am, and
Wonder if
moved
that
on.
helps.
Possibly, possibly may do. But yeah, so certainly from an expectation perspective at the moment, I don't have a huge expectation around putting a score together. But what I do really want to be focused on is continuing on with the process around improving certainly the fundamentals and the basics of what I think were some pretty bad habits that I grooved when I was playing seriously. And I did say
Yeah.
to Joe a couple of weeks back, when we were talking about, the how I'd been going and all the rest, I told her it had been very up and down. And sometimes I feel like I'm swinging it really well and others, not so much. And she sort of said, yeah, well, that's pretty much because of where you're at it with your swing. Some days you're going to go out and if your hands are good and your timing's right, it's going to be all good, but you're also going to have the complete opposite days as well. So your consistency is just not going to be there. And that's pretty much 100% what's happened over the last sort of 20 years of playing. So
Tell me it's different for any amateur golfer running around the place, really.
yeah, yeah. But also most amateur golfers don't get coaching sessions, so they've got a whole rafter of bad habits that they're playing with on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So yeah, it's exactly my situation is exactly the same as probably 95% of amateur golfers are out there, maybe even higher than 95%. So for me, it's around I've made the decision to make these changes because it's a long-term goal. It's a long-term vision that I have to, I'm 51 now, it's, 55 is when we want to be at that level where we're playing good golf about around that scratch handicap. So I've got time. I've
Mm.
got time to be able to, maybe go through a few months of pain to come through the other side of it, whether it be towards the end of the year or next year or whenever that may be, with a swing that's going to perform under pressure, and that's really what I want to do. I sort of feel as though previously my swing hasn't been great at performing under pressure. I feel as though it's more that I just hate losing, and probably a bit of whether it be grit or whether it be determination or whatever
Mm.
has got me through. But certainly there are times when, and recent example is the snap hook. I might be
Mm.
playing really well, and all of a sudden the snap hook comes out,
Mm.
and I think that's not that they're not mental errors. That's a technical issue, and I've been pretty aware of that for a while.
Yep. Yep. That's all reasonable. I don't know that the line is as clear between mental and physical, though. Sometimes what you think it is, because a lot of what goes on in the head is what enables you to access your skill set or not, and in particular in pressure situations. So,
Mm.
there's also that. It's not necessarily saying, but kind of that intention that it's not swings that fail under pressure; it's people, um, because the swing's the same. But the mental approach and focusing on the outcomes and all those types of things in those pressure situations is what actually prevents you from accessing the skill set.
Mm.
There's a whole lot in that
Yeah.
topic to unpack, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I mean, on the other side of the equation as well, and Neil spoke about this as well, is you've got to actually identify if you hit a poor shot, whether it was actually a technical fault or whether it was something to do with your mental approach. And I think there's
correct.
a there's a there's a balance there that you've got to identify where those issues are. And I think we've discussed it a few times, is that it doesn't matter how good your mental game is, if your swing's not there, then you're not
Oh,
going to
for sure, for
compete
sure,
at a high
for
level.
sure. And that's the thing. Like a good mental side of things is not going to make you a better golfer than physically what you're capable of, but it will just enable you to access the skill set that you possess more consistently and
Yeah.
more reliably.
Mm.
Which is a good point, because one of my other questions that I was going to ask you is there's been a lot of talk about the technical side of things and swing side of things and some of those areas. Have you, I don't know if you remember, we talked about the mental scorecard. That was kind of something that Neil had suggested that I focus on for a little bit, after sharing some of my troubles at the time, which were actually largely to do with putting, really. Um, it's helped enormously,
Yeah.
like
Are you still doing that?
enormously. I haven't done the physical card on the last couple of rounds, but I'm still doing
Yep.
the process.
Yep.
Just haven't done the writing it down, but I do intend to go back to that. I'll probably do it at the Macquarie Cup when we play, so that'll be
Yeah.
my
Right.
next comp round.
Yep.
I will probably do it there for the simple fact that it's such a good physical thing to do to keep you in the right mental space that you need to
Yep.
be in. It's a real trigger for the, for the thinking, and and that's one of the other things that I've noticed when I'm not physically using the piece of paper to jot down the yes or no after every shot. There's a difference between, how hard you think you're focusing versus how hard you really are focusing when you're doing the process properly.
Yep.
um, I think it was Steve Wall, Australian cricket captain, that talked about concentration, because he was well known for that. And he was talking about, when you think you're concentrating 100%, concentrate harder.
Yep.
And that was his superpower, that he was able to access just incredible powers of application and concentration during his innings. It's a similar thing. I think often I think that I'm in the right mental space playing shots in a normal round of golf. But what I noticed is that using that scorecard, using the mental scorecard, actually elevated that to another level. So that's an interesting observation.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
would, I
And
would
look,
recommend
it's
giving it a go.
Yeah, and that's something that I mean, Neil more directed that recommendation to yourself, so I haven't picked up and run with sort of the mental scorecard, but it's certainly something that I see benefit in, and probably should give it a crack at some stage. Because I do feel as though mentally I am improving, but I've got no real benchmark or barometer to actually say that I am. When I've gone out into the high performance center, one of the things I've been really focused on is making sure that I'm dialed in on every swing, and I've got a swing thought, and I've got a strong, I guess, mental picture of what I'm trying to achieve in each shot that I play. I don't just go in there and just beat balls, basically. And I've
Yeah, yeah,
found
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
is really helping me out on the golf course to have that same, you know, I guess, level of mental focus and really dialing in on
yeah.
each shot. But again, it's something that I feel I'm doing, but I don't have a measurement for that. There's no yardstick as to whether I'm actually doing it or not.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You need to practice it. So doing it in the high performance center is good, absolutely. But a little bit like how your ball striking in the high performance center is different to when you get out on the course,
Mm.
because in the high performance center, every lie is a perfect lie. You're hitting everything off a mat. You're not hitting anything out of, long grass, short grass, bare lies, etc.
Yep.
Um, Also, you're hitting generally, kind of full shots, and you're just trying to hit a good swing type shot. So you're almost, a little bit like that outside to in versus inside to out, putting the curtain down in front, just focusing on the technique. You're not actually thinking about where the ball's ending up, because
Yeah.
it's not, it's hitting the net and dropping.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is it's practice which is free of consequence for hitting a bad shot.
Yeah.
Um, that makes it a lot easier to focus on the process and focus on the swing and not worry about the outcome, because quite literally you're not worried about the outcome.
Yeah.
Whereas you take that to the course and then you're playing a variety of shots. You might have to play creative shots and different shots, and every shot that you play is different to the one that you played previously, because it's with a different club and it's looking and you're trying to achieve a different thing. And then some are touch and some are full.
Mm.
So there's all of those variables that make it harder to execute, but also make it more challenging because of all the variables, to make sure that you are absolutely going through your mental process before the shot. So that's a very long-winded way of saying that it's different on the inside to the outside.
Yeah, look, and I agree with that. It's very, very valid points. It is very different from, being out in the golf course and having to go through that process on a different shot every time, because
Yeah.
that's it. Whether you be on the fairway or you're in the rough, or there are a number of shots today where I had to manufacture shots out of trees because I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
I didn't drive the ball particularly well, but I actually, it's interesting. I recovered better today than what I've recovered for a very long time. I potentially could have had, 5 or 6 double bogeys rather than the three, but I recovered pretty well, and I was pretty happy with
So
those recovery.
why do you think that was?
Um, Look,
Because I
it's
didn't I didn't see the round at all, but I've got a
no,
theory. But I'm interested in
yeah.
your theory.
I've got to be honest. I've actually learnt and I've thought a lot about, and I've learnt a lot from John Sermon's book,
Mm,
of playing percentages, and not so when I'm in trouble, when I'm in the trees, not going for the hero shot,
mm.
just bunting at 130, 140 down the fairway, take your medicine, you've still got a chance of making par, but you're eliminating well, I
The
don't know,
big number.
three doubles, but triples or worse.
Yep.
But also when you're in the fairway and there might be a tight pin position, not actually going for the pin, being a
Oh,
bit more
100%.
conservative and going for the middle of the green.
Yes.
On the other side of that, the downside of that is I didn't have any birdies today. So, but how many of those 12 pars that I had, potentially I could have had more bogeys if I was hitting to the flag rather than playing for the middle of the green. open-ended question, we'll never know. But those strategic course management decisions, I feel like I'm getting better at.
It's so important. I absolutely agree with all of that. Like I've embraced that mentality that he wrote about in the Four Foundations of Golf. I think it's one of the best golf books that's come out in a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and it's focused on course management a lot and mentality and making sure that you do the right things and the simple things. And I absolutely agree with that. Like have been trying to do that for a while, and I've noticed definitely recovery shots are improved. The other thing that I was thinking about though when I was asking that question of why do you think your recovery shots were better today, because, and I think again this is linked and it's something that he talks a bit about, and you mentioned it before that you went out there without that expectation on a score and sort of without that outcome focus, that you were more just process focused, because I think that helps when it comes to recovery shots, because you're not going into the recovery shot stressed about, am I going to make par on this hole still, or I've blown this hole, or I've created myself a scoring problem, or I'm
Yeah.
angry about the shot that I played, or any of those sorts of negative thoughts. You're just going in there trying to play a good shot, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes a huge difference, so that the emotion levels are a lot more stable.
So it's effectively getting up to your ball and assessing where you are on its merits rather than on what's on the scorecard.
Sounds so obvious when you put it like that, but who
Yeah.
does that?
Yeah, well, there's probably a fair few pros that do that that
Well,
are at the
yeah,
top of their game, but how many amateurs do it? Certainly at our level, yeah, there are probably some, but the vast majority no.
yeah, and that's a huge one. And I think that both of those things make a big difference, and probably led to that being an 81 instead of an 86.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Which
I
could have
feel as
been.
though, as I said, it potentially, if I wasn't as strategic as what I was today, potentially could have gone out to 85, 86. However, as I said, with how I played and how I hit the ball, and with that course management and with that strategic approach, and I guess the not expecting having that no expectations and an acceptance approach, then yeah, I feel as though 81 was probably the worst I could have had.
Very good. Quite a bit
Yeah.
to unpack there.
Yeah. So look, good. Yeah, and look, you know what? I actually really enjoyed it today. You know,
Ooh,
I didn't actually, nine overs not something that I would normally go out and go, you know what, that's good. Like, I'm happy with that. And from a score perspective, yeah, I'm still not, but it was actually quite an enjoyable day. I had a couple of three guys that I played with that were really good company, had a bit of a chat on the way around. It was a nice day.
are they
It was
friends
just,
of the show, by the way? Those three guys.
oh, they're always friends of the show.
Right. Okay. Shout
So
out to your three playing partners today.
yeah, so it was just a good day, which is great.
No, that's
That's
good.
that's that
That's
that's what
good.
it's all about.
That is good. That is good. Um, Getting towards the end of the episode, there's one other topic that I wouldn't mind raising, Andy Walker. I mentioned
Yep.
this at the beginning. I've got an observation or a question from an observation around watching some of the Players Championship
Yep.
and and other tournaments recently.
Mm. Mm.
Now, this is not anything to do with the Live PGA. This is a question about the professional game in general. Is Andy Walker, is professional golf at the highest level an individual game or a team game?
Yeah, big question. And yeah, to be honest, and this is where I think Liv has tried to cross over a little bit, and I don't think it's worked. I think it can be, I think it can be both based on the situation. Certainly when it comes to playing tournament golf, and we're talking about the players,
Like what
uh,
tournament
the
golf? The
the
Masters, the Open.
slams, yeah, that's purely individual, and that's an individual pursuit
It's
by,
an
well, I mean,
individual game, you say?
yeah, yeah. So, well, I mean, you could look at the broader team that a player has around them, and I don't know if that's where you're getting, but certainly,
It's close.
yeah, certainly. a caddy is like indispensable. And then you've got, your mental coach and your fitness coach and your dietitian and your, or whatever a player has, their entourage that travels with them, each week. So they've got a team around them,
Yep.
but when it comes to their performance, it's up to them to perform. There's only one person that can go out and perform, right?
So I am directly driving at the player caddy relationship here with this question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
After watching some of the antics that was going on during the last round, and no one did anything wrong. It's always interesting once you notice something, you start really noticing something.
Yep.
Some time ago, I can't remember exactly when it was, but some time ago, there was a rule change which prevented the caddy standing directly in line with the player when they were lining up a putt.
Yep.
So they couldn't align the player when they were lining up the putt. Why was that rule changed?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Maybe they thought there was some advantage or disadvantage that it was trying to solve. But yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not sure.
So, because I was thinking about this and I could only think of two reasons why that rule would have been changed. One of those reasons is that it's an unfair advantage because the caddy is aligning the player and the player is no longer having to judge their shot and judge their putt to get it into the hole.
Yep.
Okay. I'll come back to that. Or the other reason might have been speed of play. Because the caddy they're going, no, wiggle a bit that way, wiggle a bit that way, wiggle a bit that way. Maybe that's
Yeah.
slowing things down, but I don't know. But there's probably other things that you need to address for speed of play. So it's probably to do with the perception of fair play of the player having to execute. All right.
Yeah.
I was watching Wyndham Clark putt. Now I don't think Wyndham's any different to anybody else, so this is not a crack at him. But I was watching it, and that he has a process. He and his caddy have a process. So it looks like uses the line on the ball. So he's got his
Yes.
marker on the green.
Yep.
Reads the putt. Caddy reads the putt. He reads the putt. Lines the ball up on the line that he wants to do, and he's now basically lying his putter down on top of the ball in the direction, to make sure that it's right. All of
Yep.
that weird, but okay. But then what's happening is his caddy steps in with a wedge in his hand and takes a putting stance at the ball
I
for the
have noticed
line
that.
that he believes that he should be putting on
Mm.
and physically demonstrates to the player, stand like this, hit it on this line,
Yep.
and then steps back. Wyndham steps in with the caddy right behind him, takes his stance over the ball, still with his marker on the green, so he's not going to hit it. And, wiggle this way, wiggle that way, all the rest of it. Then steps away, caddy moves away, picks the ball up, goes back to the stance that he was just in a moment ago, hits the putt. I genuinely think we have gone past the point of what the spirit of the caddy is, and it's almost like it's a second player,
Mm.
Andy Walker. I feel like it's an overreach of caddies almost being a co-pilot, particularly on the greens. I've got no problem with them going, yardage is this, yardage is that, pull this club, pull that club, whatever the story might be, or a bit of sports psychology on the walk around to get you back on track. But the amount of input, Dustin Johnson is another one with his brother, the way that they carry on the greens.
Yep.
They may as well let the caddy putt for them.
Mm. Yeah, look, it's interesting. I'd have to have a bit of a think about it because I did see exactly the same thing, and it was pretty unique. The approach. I mean, yeah, I guess you could try and restrict what a caddy can do from a whole range of different aspects, and they're always going to find a way around it and find a way to do something different in order to get a slight advantage. And that's effectively what it is. They're trying to gain a whatever a small
Yeah.
advantage is, um, against their opponents. And at that level, 0.0001% of a gain
I
is
know
worth
it all
millions
adds
and
up.
millions of dollars. It does. So, you talked about the spirit of the player caddy relationship. I sort of feel as though that's a little bit around, we're talking about the cricket spirit of the game type of
A little bit.
so I don't necessarily think it's a conversation around spirit of the caddy player relationship. My question would be, is it within the rules? And if they're playing within the rules, then I don't have a problem with it.
Which they are. They absolutely are. And I am not casting any aspersions at anybody doing anything that is not completely and utterly within the rules. My question is more around we actually talk about, and the guys on the PGA Tour talk about the team aspect,
Mm.
golf being an
Yeah,
individual game. And then, yes, point the finger at Liv for their team element and that somehow reduces the seriousness of it. I
mm.
guess my point is, ball striking is a critical skill to be a good golfer, a
Yeah,
professional golfer.
yeah,
Course management is a particular skill to be a high quality professional golfer. When it comes to putting, there's a few elements which are important to be a really good putter on the greens. One of those
yeah,
is speed control.
yeah,
One of those is, face control and striking the center of the face so you start the ball in the line that you want it to.
yeah.
But another one's green reading.
Yes.
All right.
Mm.
Now, if you're outsourcing that skill in black and white terms, how's that any different to outsourcing any of the other skills that are involved in being a high quality professional golfer?
Well, I mean, you're not you're still physically making the stroke, right? So, for me, green reading is probably there's not a lot of difference between, say, green reading and giving yardages. Like you're outsourcing part of that element of the game, whereas, guys like us, obviously amateur golfers, we've got to do everything. Whereas they've got caddies and they outsource part of that, that part of the game to the caddies so that they can focus on execution. So
Mm,
at the end of the day, regardless on how much the caddy does and how much information they give and whether they read greens or not or whatever, the player still has to execute, right? That and the caddies
sure.
and that's the hardest part of it. The hardest part of it is the execution.
Yeah, yeah, yes and no on the putting side of things, because I think they're very, very good at rolling the chosen line that they've got and got excellent speed control. I think the biggest variable on missed putts at the pro level is green reading.
Hmm. Yeah, look, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't know. I think there was something that I might have been on Full Swing actually. There was a conversation around aim point,
Right.
and a couple of the pros were saying they don't understand it. It's a waste of space and whatever. And then there was a couple of the pros that use aim point basically say, well, it's something that's relatively new at this stage. And according to them, it gives such a big advantage that they believe in 10 years' time, every single pro will be using aim point.
Mm,
So, and a lot of that is around the fact that you're feeling the slope of the green with your feet. And it's a lot easier to get a read and to feel the slope with your feet than what it is with your eyes. As we know, golf course architects design the greens for optical illusions, which,
sure.
in order to trick,
Yeah.
where you think the breaks are. So
Yep.
your eyes can deceive you. They can lie to you, whereas it's a lot easier to understand and to feel the slope of a green with, through your feet with aim point. And I found that my green reading has gone through the roof since I've taken aim point and run with it. So yeah, look, it's interesting because yeah, Wyndham Clark doesn't use aim point, and whether using aim point would eliminate that part of it, I don't know. I think that's a big question. But for
Mm,
me, if it's within the rules, I don't have too much of a drum with it. I don't really see it, really being too different to any other, responsibility or function that a caddy would take on.
Mm, interesting. Um, to be continued, I think.
Mm.
There you
Yes,
go.
yes. But in
Professional
in
golf is a team game. I think we've established.
in relation to the team element, and I think we've covered this sort of, a few weeks back, is that and talking about Full Swing, I've now watched all the episodes, all 8 episodes of season 2. The last 2 episodes are on the Ryder Cup, and yeah, you
Oh,
need
so good.
you need to watch that, because that part of golf, and that's where I don't think Liv's got team golf right.
No, they haven't.
I would love to see Ryder Cup, President's Cup, that team match play format
Yeah.
be broader within golf. I think bringing that tribalism within the game, and I'm not sure if I mentioned, I think I did, is that I believe the Olympics should be match play. I don't think the Olympics should be a
The
stroke play event.
Olympics should be a team event,
Well, that's
I think.
interesting. Yeah,
I
that's
think
that
it I
that's
think it should be. I think it
yeah, because there's at least 2 players, I think, from it's the top 2 ranked
yeah.
golfers, and if
Yeah.
you have a certain number of players within, and I don't know what the qualifications is, because I know the US has more
I
than
would
two
like to
players.
see it as a team event, and I would like to see it not as men's and women's, but as a combined team,
Yeah, right.
personally.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a bad, yeah, no, not a bad format. I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I
Mm.
agree. And match play, I think match play. I mean, as you know, I love match play. I think match play is a great game, which isn't played enough at the pro level. And I think bringing the tribalism of teams within that match play environment, I think that could do wonders for the game. And then have your four majors and your big tournaments, similar to what Rory was talking about, around
Yeah.
the national opens, throw the Players Championship and that in there, and then have your team sport, and look, I think that's where golf needs to go, and I think that's could could create a really phenomenal calendar based around that.
No, I agree. I agree. The challenge, I think, always for golf is going to be how do you come up with teams? Um,
Yeah,
because they can't just be national teams. Otherwise, there'll be 75 American teams and
yeah,
3 others. Um, that's always a bit of an issue. But I think what Liv has proved is that teams that don't represent anything or don't have a purpose, but they're just teams for the sake of teams,
yeah,
people don't get behind it.
yeah,
Like fireballs, four aces, high flyers,
yeah,
majestics. Who cares? Yeah, the cliques, the stingers.
yeah.
Give me
Ripper.
strength. Honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And look,
the
I still haven't watched Live yet. To be honest with you, I know that you were talking about, a few weeks back, that you turned it to Live, and you actually enjoyed watching Live more than what you actually enjoyed watching the PGA Tour. But
not quite, not quite. What I had said is that the playing roster on Live made it more
mm,
attractive for me to want to watch it than
yeah,
to want to watch the PGA. I have
yeah,
to admit the watching experience of Live I do find irritating
yeah,
versus the more traditional version on, say, the PGA Tour or the DP
yeah.
World Tour or any of the other tours.
Yeah. See,
And
see, I,
that's
I, I found the Players Championship, and watching the Players Championship was phenomenal.
yeah, give me
And
that
the
every day of the week.
yeah, and what Scotty Scheffler did, and I mean that lip out of Wyndham kind of got the last. I
Phenomenal,
mean,
phenomenal.
like that was just, yeah, it was phenomenal, and
It was awesome.
I love seeing tournament golf and the best golfers in the world going head to head in the way that Scotty Scheffler and Wyndham Clark have done over the last couple of weeks. I think that's just phenomenal. And I mean, as much as, a bit of a shame about Xander Schauffele, I'd love to see Xander Schauffele win a major, and I was really hoping he was going to win the Players. I think he probably will win a major at some stage, but yeah, I think he's just got a little bit. He's just got to find something there at the death that's missing at the moment.
Mm. So no, I agree with all of that. Absolutely agree with that. And I think that's what Liv is lacking. I think that the shotgun start doesn't work for me personally, because I'd like to see everyone finish on 18 rather than, potentially your winner finishing over on the fifth hole or something like that.
Yep.
That's not, it's just not right. Like
Yep.
so many issues with all of that. But my biggest complaint about Live, to be perfectly honest, is the music that they continually play throughout the entire telecast. And it's not just the fact that there is music, but it's the music that they play.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So they're choices that might say more about my midlife crisis than it does about their choice of music. But
yeah, fair enough.
so that I find that annoying. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. I've got one last question for you, and this is about who do we crown as this week's Missing Links Golf Show Player of the Week? I've got some nominees.
Yep.
First nominee, Scotty Scheffler, back-to-back Players Championships.
Yep.
It's pretty impressive.
Well, back-to-back weeks and also back-to-back Players Championships.
Players.
That's a great effort.
It's going to be hard to beat. However, another nominee I would throw in is Wyndham Clark for, almost peeling off 3 birdies in a row to force a playoff, which is he almost did a Hannah Green.
Yeah.
Didn't quite. So there's Wyndham. My third nominee, Andy Walker, this is a little bit left field, is Ricky Fowler.
Right.
Yeah, Ricky, for absolutely giving a serve to a fan after a tee shot, for continually having a loud mobile phone noise going during his swing.
I did see that. I did see that, and I have to say I rate Ricky. I've got a lot of time for Ricky Fowler, and talk to him about another bloke who I really would like to see win a major at some stage.
100%.
So yeah, I mean, look, I don't think we should give Player of the Week to someone who lost. So
That's everyone other than Scotty there.
however, I do like the giving a tool a serve.
Yeah, I know, and that's why I thought that
You
might
know,
resonate with you.
look, and I think we're both of a similar mindset here that sometimes, like, an idiot just needs to be told they're an idiot.
Yeah, and I rate that Ricky did it. He first time around let his caddy tell old mate to maybe pipe down, but second time around he let him know.
Yeah,
That
sort of
was good to
similar to
see.
what Zach Johnson did at the Wasted Open.
Yes, 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 yes,
Uh,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah, he was never going
but
to win that argument though.
no,
Um,
no. But look, I'm happy to give it to Ricky, actually.
Ricky,
Just
yeah,
thinking
I
about
mean
it.
it's
Yeah,
Scotty's the easy choice. He'll have more chances.
yeah.
Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler is, congratulations, Ricky Fowler, this week's
Well
Missing
done,
Links
Rick.
Golf Show Player of the Week. Way to
Yeah,
go.
and I think, as per the custom now, extending an invitation to Player of the Week to come on the show.
Yeah, we'll give him a
To
shout out on X. See if we get a response this time
yeah,
around. Anyway, we'll
yeah.
see. We'll see.
Got to give it a crack.
You do. But Andy Walker, that was a nice little short episode this week. Well done.
I actually didn't have too much on my little sort of list of stuff to cover, but we seem to have still sort
That's
of got that hour plus. Our what is it? Hour 20 has got to be.
it's about an hour and 20.
Yeah,
That's what
cool.
happens when we don't prepare.
No,
Nevertheless, it's been a good chat once again. Covered a fair
yep,
bit of ground. There's a lot of good stuff, and thanks to some of our pilgrims for some of those fantastic messages.
yeah,
Definitely
love
Ted
it.
from Mollymook. Love your work. Keep us honest. Leroy from Las Vegas. Yep, you are correct, and I'm not surprised. I didn't even join these dots. Okay, but I'm going to join them now.
Yeah.
No one would have more of a clue about a midlife crisis than a guy from Las Vegas.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Yeah.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, get out there, hit that auto download button, the subscribe button, whatever you want to call it. Give us a review. I might start saying this at the start of the episode just in case people switch off at this point.
Yeah.
Give us a review. That'd be amazing because it all helps. Share it with a friend, get a few more pilgrims on the journey. And yeah, stay tuned because we've got a lot of big stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. So that's it from me, Andy Walker. Any final messages to our pilgrims before we let them have it?
Just the usual message, rock out, pilgrims.
Sounds good.